In 1996, the city of Taylor partnered with Wayne County and this nonprofit now known as Community Cares. The city of Taylor donated some property, and I believe it was partially, the build-out was partially funded by community development block grant funding as well as a grant. And of course, the building became known as the Health and Human Service Building on Eureka Road. It's a very uniquely designed building, specifically designed for medical type operations. And the groups that are in there that should have been in one of the emails that I sent are all basically groups that provide services to low to moderate income individuals. The vision initially at that time was thought that they would be located in that section of Taylor to serve that section of people that were in the apartments primarily. It grew, and yes, they still serve Taylor residents, but they serve virtually everyone else as well in Wayne County, so there's a lot of other people that come to it. So the deal is set to expire on December 31st of this year. About 6 months ago or so, they came to the city of Taylor. We couldn't even locate the file on this particular property. So the arrangement that they recalled when their board met with our team was that at expiration, the city of Taylor would sign this property over for $1. So we looked into the files, could not find any type of agreement like that. So we began meeting with anybody that we could resurrect from the past. We met with Mayor Petoniak, Mayor Freeby, Ray Basham, to try to find out what they recalled. Nobody could recall anything like that, so we then turned to Community Cares and said, well, show us an agreement that you guys have for this $1 buyout. They couldn't produce it, so we began negotiations. And essentially, Gus, why don't you talk about the legal side of where we're at, and then we can talk about how we arrived at the number.
All right, sure. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. So that kind of sets the history. So basically, the city donated 12.5 acres to this Community Cares property project. The Michigan Strategic Fund issued a bond for $1.8 million. Community Cares property used that $1.8 million to build out the building. City of Taylor used some of their $720,000 of CDGB grant money. That was in 1995. So the document, there are all these different documents, but the indenture document basically has a provision in there that the city transferred the property, and the property currently is titled in the name of Community Cares Properties, a nonprofit organization. The indenture has a provision in there that once the bonds are paid off, that the city then has the right to provide a termination notice to CCP, Community Cares Property, and basically state to Community Cares Property that the city is going to exercise its right of reverter, because there's a right of reverter in the agreement that allows the city, upon giving the notice, to get the property titled back into the city's name. So the city would then own that property, and with that have to deal with all the tenants that are in the building, including Wayne County, including all these, basically they're mental health organizations or organizations that serve that population that Community Cares Properties services. So what we have done is, since we went to Community Cares and said, what do you want? Do you want to be a landlord, or do you want to continue to be a tenant, or what is it that you want? They have the relationship with each and every one of the tenants that are there. Each and every one of those tenants provides services or provides administrative services for and on behalf of Community Cares through different organizations, different programs to service the population that they're servicing. They said they'd like to have the building, and they'd like to have it for $1. We said, okay, well, that's great. So what we did is we negotiated a provision and entered and presented a letter agreement to Community Cares Properties in which we would, for the payment of $1 million to the City of Taylor, the City of Taylor would not exercise its right of reverter to get the property back. So What does that mean? It's basically, it's a real estate transaction, but it's not a purchase agreement. It's just an agreement that we are not going to exercise our right to have the property revert back to us. So it would remain titled in CCP's name. For that option and for that right for the city not to exercise that, they're going to pay us $1 million.
Over the course of, what,
No.
in one payment?
One payment.
Well,
They'll
quick
finance
question.
it.
Right now, all those tenants in there, they're paying rent?
They are paying rent, and
who?
CCP collects the rent, because they own the building currently.
So the city of Taylor has never got any revenue from that building, is that correct?
Pardon me?
Has the city of Taylor ever had any revenue generated from that property?
You know what, they have not had any money generated, but we do use that property for the sixth precinct voting, is that correct?
From my understanding, they would allow us to continue to do that,
Yes,
correct?
they continue to allow us to use the building, the community room, we can continue to use that as a precinct.
So that was the last holdup what had to be negotiated into the deals. That we looked at other options on that side of town, and we just couldn't find a comparable location that would work for Cindy. So they agreed to allow us to continue to use that. There's no, I mean, it's not a big deal for them. I mean, I'm sure that during presidential elections they make it a bigger deal, but for the most part, it's really not that big of a deal. So they will continue to allow that to occur.
How do we arrive to the $1 million amount? Because I'm curious of that, because it is a nonprofit, it services, you know, some of the poorest of the poor of our community, so why are we capitalizing on that?
So it was really negotiated. You know, Jerry did an assessment, a full leased out assessment, and an empty building type assessment. It's hard to really get a gauge on it though, because there's the dynamic of Wayne County still basically owns a wing within this building. I mean, this is like a condominium, and we own some of it and they own part of it, and so selling it to somebody else would be very complicated. Jerry, the number you came up with was like 1.7 million. And then we looked at, you know, the city of Taylor over the last 20 years, you asked the question, did we collect anything? No, not even taxes. So we looked at it and said, we at least need to get our money back out of this deal. We put in 700,000 plus we donated the property. We started at a much higher number, and we eventually got to the $1 million number.
And the 1.7 million, that's valued if it's fully leased.
Well, I was gonna say, you said empty building. I mean, wouldn't you be taking how long these leases have existed as an idea of how long they will continue to exist and calculate what sort of rental income you're generating to assess a sales value of that property? I'm the exact opposite of Angela. I'm wondering why it's not more than $1 million.
Well, and both are valid arguments. I mean, both make, you know, very good points, and that's one of the things we wrestled with, and then of course negotiating with a willing buyer was the other part of it.
Here's the, and I agree with 100%, when we had that discussion and we looked at it and we said, well, maybe we could sell it to a third party and they could be a landlord. We don't want to be in the landlord business, okay? Problem is you have this building which is very unique.
You guys have the sketch, right? I sent you guys all the
Not
sketch.
the
of
best
how it's
looking
laid out.
building.
Sketch makes it look like 5 different buildings.
I know, it's a little crazy.
There's a lot of cross easements. Wayne County, they share community space. It's really kind of complicated. But if Community Cares were to vacate that premise, okay, and go someplace else, which they have the right to do, more than likely all of those other tenants that they do work with and service them, more than likely would vacate with them. Okay, and then we would be left there with a building that's empty. So we want to keep that service in town. We want to keep that organization in town, and this is what we were able to come up with an agreement. They do have right now, because most of these leases are expired and they can't enter into any new leases with any of their existing tenants without our permission after December 15. One of their requirements at the bank on the commitment letter is that they have to present, all of the tenants in the building have to have signed up to leases for at least 5 years. That's what they're working on right now.
So they're going to be able to see what sort of revenue is being generated, and that's going to help the bank determine a loan-to-value ratio,
Yep.
right? Which would help us if we were selling that on the open market, what that property would be. Are you saying that number's 1.7, or could it be significantly higher than that, based on that revenue calculation?
Sure, and just through the chair, Councilman, my number is 1.7. based on market leases that are currently in place for office space.
Not the leases they have, they could be better or worse. You haven't seen those leases.
This is D office space, this is not Class A office space, this is Class.
You have like women, infants, and children in there, you have the Taylor Teen Health Center, these are medical facilities,
Well, when they fund their
People
nonprofit
get
through this
food help
rental
there.
income, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's how
Right, but
they
it's set up
provide
to
these
service,
services.
I think, they even built it to service those particular.
They're in the process right
Yeah.
now, they have a
So-
commitment letter with PNC Bank, they're in the process of getting the leases done, they're in the process of getting an appraisal. You know, they're gonna finance this acquisition through PNC Bank.
Is there any idea of what the current income is for all those rental spaces? Do you have any idea?
I believe on the one attachment, I believe there's some hand notes written in it. I believe there's some estimates that are on there. I didn't print it, but I believe it was in the email. Jerry was,
25,230?